Hey everyone, it's Amy here and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a love it or leave it on a brand new limited edition holiday palette from Tarte, and this is the new Tarte Amazonian Clay Blush Palette Color Wheel. I'm sure you guys have seen this all over social media and Instagram. This has been totally hyped up over the last several months and everyone has been dying waiting for this palette to release, including myself. So this is going to be a review and some swatches on this brand new palette. I was so excited when this released on Monday on Tarte's website. Of course, it sold out within a couple hours on Tarte, and then they let us know it's going to be available at Sephora. So it is exclusively sold at Sephora now. It is online. I'm not sure if the stores have them. I've heard around that some of the JCPenney Sephoras are having them, but my local Sephora did not have it yet, but I did purchase mine on Tarte, and you can purchase it for sure online at Sephora.com, and it does retail for $44. So let me go ahead and show you guys the packaging. It's super duper cute. It's the same size as the Tarte Color Correcting Palette, which is really nice. If you guys remember, I reviewed the big blush book too a couple weeks ago, and look at the difference. It's huge, and this is small, so I actually really like this. This is the nice, really sturdy material as well. I think this one is going to be excellent for travel. You get an excessive amount of blushes in here and highlighters if you wanted to travel with it, but at least you have a really nice, sturdy packaging to travel with. I don't think it's going to break. You obviously do not get a mirror because you get 10 blushes in here, but let me go ahead and show you up close the packaging. So here's what it looks like. It's kind of cream, white, gold, and purple. I love it. You guys know I'm a fan of purple shades. And so this is such a cute, really pretty palette. And then on the back, it's just standard Tarte gold. So when you open it up, here is what the palette looks like. And we will get to the shades in a second, and you do have kind of this like plastic divider that sits in the middle. But there are the 10 shades in this palette. So let me go ahead and read you some information off of Sephora's website, and then we will get to swatching. It does retail for $44. It says it's a $150 value. Let me address the size right now because I'm sure we were all thinking that these were going to be full sizes. At least that's what I was thinking based on the Instagram post and things they were saying and stuff, but these are not full size. They actually are about a little less than half of a full size blush. These are 0.084 ounces each of them, or a total of 2.4 grams each, whereas a full size, looking at my individual one in Sensual, is 5.6 grams or 0.2 ounces. So you get a little less than half of it. However, if you think about it, the price of a blush by itself is $28, and you're getting probably about 4 to 5 full-size blushes in here once you break it down. Since these are about half the size of a full size, you get 10, rough estimate, 4 to 5 full-size blushes. Definitely worth the price. And I do want to mention as well, since we're talking about size and the manufacturing of it and everything, it is made in China, which is very, very typical of Tarte with their blush palettes and their eyeshadow palettes for the holidays. Pretty much every single palette that I have from Tarte when it comes to blushes are all made in China. I still really adore them. I think they're really great. They're not as absolutely amazing as the Amazonian Clay original ones made in the United States, but I think they're still really, really good and worth purchasing, whereas the eyeshadows I kind of stay away from. So really quickly, since it is made in China, I do want to mention I do like this palette a lot. It was a love it. I suggested it and recommended it to you guys. A lot of you guys were saying, and I do agree, that it does have a slightly powdery formula compared to the originals, that when you put your brush in there, it just has a little bit more kick up and a little bit more like, you know, just powder going all over the place. I find that this actual palette right here does not have that problem as much as the big blush book. I find that these are a little bit more hard pressed into the pan like you would find with, you know, an original Amazonian Clay one. These are very, very pressed into the palette or the compacts, and so I find that this is much more similar to the original USA formula than it is to the big blush book too. And so it says it's an exclusive double-sided cheek palette with 10 blushes and highlight shades. Color your way to perfect glow with this custom blush and highlighter palette. It features 10 deluxe limited edition blushes and mattes, lusters, and 2 micro pearlescent highlighters, all in one complexion enhancing palette. With its dual-sided design, which I love, like I think this is such a cool concept that there's no mirror and that you get 10 blushes all in one. And then it says it's curated with 5 warm and 5 cool shades. So down here are the warm shades right here, and then up top are your cool shades. So I think it's really cool too because this one screams a little bit more summery spring and this one screams a little bit more fall and winter to me. But I like that I have all the choices and options all in one palette. And it says you can mix and match with your cheek wardrobe to create the perfect custom look. The neutral and bold universal shades spotlight a variety of complexions with a built-in cover for mess-free portability. Powered by the Tarte's long-wearing Amazonian clay, the iconic best-selling formula balances and replenishes skin for 12 hours of fade-free, ultra-pigmented wear. So let me go ahead and start swatching them for you, and then I'll tell you a little bit about each of these colors and what they're described as well as, you know, the pros and the cons, because there are a couple in here that I'm not absolutely crazy about. So the first one is called Decay, and this one right here, it's described as a poppy pink, and you will see up here a close-up popping up throughout this entire swatch session so that you can see them closer up as well, but this one is a poppy pink. Now this one, I find that Tarte almost puts some kind of variation or a very similar color to this in every single one of their palettes. I find that there's a color very similar in the big blush book. This one right here called Perky is very similar. In the Tarteist blush palette that came out earlier this year, I think this shade right here called Live or Live is very, very similar as well. Like, for some reason, they always put this kind of like really corally pinky color in the palette. So the next shade in the palette is called Mod, and this is described as a peachy coral shade, and both of these are matte, by the way, and this is a really nice kind of mid-tone peach. It's not too bright like Poppy is, but yet it's not too dark of a nudie peach. This is a really pretty color. I don't have anything in my collection that's quite a dupe for this one. The next shade is called Idol, which is one of the shimmery highlighter shades. I do think it's nice. I don't think these highlighters in this palette are as amazing as like the Tarte exposed highlighter. It's definitely not the same quality. This has more of a consistency of a blush than it does a highlighter. It feels very similar to the blushes, like very hard pressed into the pan, kind of a sheer formula, even though the highlighters aren't as pigmented as the blushes. They have a very similar feel to them, and they don't feel like that Tarte exposed highlighter that's very dense and thick and luxurious and feels foiled. This definitely just feels like kind of a shimmery blush. Now this one you can build up and get a nice highlight, but it does have a thinner consistency than most highlighters I have in my collection, so just beware. It's not going to be like a really crazy intense highlight unless you really build it up or use a setting spray or something like that. But I do think this highlighter in the palette is better than the other one we will get to in a little bit. So the next shade, this is one of the lusters. This one is called Culture, which is a coral shimmer, and this is a really pretty color, and I like the little bit of micro glitter in it. It has a little bit of a gold specks, and they're really pretty. So then the last one is called Surreal, which is a hot pink, and this one looks similar at first to other shades in the other palettes, but I don't find that they're exact dupes enough to even swatch them. But they do look a little bit similar at first glance, but once you swatch them, there's enough of a difference between the undertones that they're not identical. But there are the cool tone shades in the palette, and kind of like the pinky, peachy, like cool tone, bright, fun ones. Those are right there. So now on this side you have your warmer tones and your darker mauve shades. I really like that about this palette, that you get really fun bright colors and you also get mauve colors instead of getting just like a couple random ones, nude, a pink, and like this and that. You get a nice like variety and it's separated. I like that a lot. So the next shade is called Concept, which is this one right here, and this is seriously like my favorite one in the palette. For some reason, I'm always obsessed with kind of like the light nudie browns. Like, I love them. That's what I have on my cheeks right now. I think it's really pretty, and this one is described as a pink nude, and it's, I love it. So there it is right there. Really pretty, really wearable as well. So then right here we have the shade Icon, and this one is described as a dusty rose. This is a really pretty color. It's very similar. It just has more of that rosy undertone, but this one is so pretty. We're going to start getting into those kind of like mauve-y deep colors. I love this side of the palette so much. So then next we have Montage, which is a pink mauve. So this one's going to have a little bit less of like that nude color in it, and we're going to get even more rosy and mauve color. And this is such a fun color. Like, this is a really like pop of color mauve fall shade. I like this one a lot. That one also is a matte shade. I don't believe actually Concept. Concept has like really tiny, finely little micro glitters in it. Very, very like not noticeable at all. Definitely not quite like a luster like over here in Culture, but it's got like very, very tiny little ones when you get up close. The rest of them over here are matte besides the highlighter. So the next blush shade in here is Ironic, and this one is described as a berry rose. So similar to this, but we're going to get a little bit more of like a purpley tone to it. So there it is. These two are quite similar though, but there is like a slight difference when you swatch them, but very, very similar. Like they don't look quite as similar here, but when you swatch them, they do look similar. So the last shade in the palette is called Crafty, and this is my least favorite shade in the palette and definitely my least favorite highlighter. This is described as a pale pink shimmer, and I find that this one like barely shows up on the skin, and that you really have to build it up, and it can be kind of hard to do. So here it is right here. It is pretty, but I mean, I really had to press my finger in there to get a decent swatch. And so definitely with both these highlighters, I have to go in with a much more dense brush. Otherwise, like, you're not picking it up whatsoever. Like if I go in with a fluffy tapered brush or a Morphe 501, which are some of my favorite highlighter brushes, like it's not going to pick up product, and it's going to be patchy because they do have shimmer, so you're just going to see glitter. If I go in with my Target Up and Up brush, which is much more dense, I find that I can kind of run my brush against the grains because they do have a design in here. If I go against the grains, I can pick up a really decent amount of product. I just find that this one is not quite as opaque and saturated as the other highlighter in this palette, and that it takes a little bit more work to it, and it's not that great. So this one is definitely kind of like the dud in the palette to me. Not as good. I still think it's cool that you got two highlighters in here. You definitely can use it as like inner corner highlight. You could use it as a topper to here. Definitely with this one, you could use it more of a topper or just like a little bit of a highlight. If you're going in with like something else and you want to build on top of it, you could do that. I do think you can get away and actually use the shade over here, Idol, as a highlighter. This one does build up a lot easier than this one does. So unfortunately that one is my least favorite in the palette and the only one that I think is not that great. And then all the other shades in here are really fantastic, ultra pigmented, easy to work with. My two favorite brushes, I'm sure you guys know this by now with Tarte blushes in particular, are the Sigma F10, and then my favorite one is using the MAC 163. I love this. I just find that the goat hair brushes really pick up the pigment really nicely and then disperse it evenly on the skin. Because these are so pigmented, but yet they're really packed in there, this is a really nice way to kind of like go against the grains, pick up a decent amount of product, but then distribute it evenly on the skin. So this is definitely my favorite blush brush. I always have to think about that. Blush brush to use with Tarte blushes. And at first you're like, oh, these are smaller. They're going to be half the size. It's going to be hard to put a brush in there. I still find that a brush fits perfectly in there, and I can get it in there and pick up all my product without disturbing other colors and shades in the palette. So overall, I do think that this palette is really great, and it's definitely a love it, and I would highly recommend it to you guys because it is limited edition. My guess is they're going to probably keep this through the holidays at the end of the year, and then it will go away. But this is a really fun, great palette. It's definitely a really great way if you don't have a ton of blushes from Tarte and you want a nice variety all in one place. Also really travel friendly. It's sturdy, and it's a totally adorable, cute palette, and you get lots of different shades in here, and you get some highlighters as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you can stay tuned to all my upcoming videos, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye!